All right, Steve Cohen. And let me pull up this list to make sure I've got this right. Let's just go over it really quick. Steve Cohen and the Mets. He's worth, by the way, $13.5 billion according to Forbes. He's got an art collection that has been valued at about $1.2 billion, $1.3 billion, and he's got palatial homes all over the world. But he also has a baseball team that he grew up with as a kid. He loved the Mets. He's loved the Mets his entire life. And so now that he owns the Mets, this is 2 years. This will be the third year. Bought him for $2.4 billion. It's I'm not trying to belittle his love of that team by calling them like his new play toy. I mean, he really is into this. But as we were saying earlier, if you were a little kid, you wanted your team to win, and you'd say, well, I want to trade for that guy. I want to go get that guy. If I were running a team, I'd sign that guy. I'd sign this guy. So he's as excited as he was as a little kid about his beloved Mets, but now he owns them, and money's no object. So he's sort of trying to put that team, maximize that team, and make it as good as he can. As a little kid would.
Right, yeah.
Except he has the money to actually do it.
His monopoly money is real money.
And as I've said, and I like it because he's kind of pulling the covers back on, all these MLB teams that cry about everything. Oh, we can't afford it. Oh, we can't afford it. Can't afford, they get their publicly financed stadiums, and they get tax breaks locally, in all kinds of places. They get welfare payments from other other MLB teams, and it says cry wolf, cry crocodile tears, cry, cry, cry. And I think Steve Cohen's kind of making everybody, just a lot of teams look really bad. Who, because of Steve Cohen, looks the worst? First of all, let's recap. Remember last year he signed Max Scherzer. Just in terms of total salary of the contract, Carlos Correa, $315 million, Brandon Nimmo, his own player, but he was a free agent, so he counts as a free agent. He brings him back $162 million. His closer signs him for $102 million. Verlander gets 2 years, $87 million, so it's about 30. What is that? Average annual value about $43 million, same as Scherzer last year. Former Cardinal Jose Quintana, 2-year deal, $26 million. Really good platoon catcher, left-handed batter. If the Cardinals were more aggressive and they really wanted to do more than just like we're better than Milwaukee, look at us, they would have jumped on Omar Narvaez. A left-handed platoon bat who can hit, and he's a good catcher. The Mets signed him. He would look awfully good in St. Louis as the number 2 guy to Contreras. But the Cardinals are not fully committed to winning. We know that by now. They signed so Narvaez got $15 million. Adam Ottavino, relief pitcher, $14.5 million. David Robertson, relief pitcher, $10 million. So that's the countdown of the big names. Oh, plus they signed the pitcher from Japan is $75 million.
I think it's Sang.
Yeah. $75 million. So he counts too. Not technically a free agent. Free agent from Japan, but nonetheless. Yep. So he's $75 million. All right. What Steve Cohen's doing, who's the top five teams that he is making look bad?
The first in line to complain at the meetings going, we got to do something about this guy. He is making us all look terrible.
I know. I'm going to start with one that would not be top of the list for I don't think many people, but I've mentioned it. I know some of our friends at Fangraphs are all over it too. They've been criticizing them about it, right?
Yep.
The Baltimore Orioles. And hear
interesting.
Hear me out on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because, of course, you have teams like the Red Sox and the Dodgers who have pulled back on spending, and you have a team like the Cardinals that just seem to be unmoved or just not even acknowledging that the terms of the competition have changed. They're still operating as if we can win the Central. Well, we get our 91 wins, and Well, how do you match up against the best teams? Well, if we get in the playoffs, got a chance. They're just oblivious to the fact that the industry's changing around them, and I don't want to know how much longer they're going to be able to hold it off once Goldie retires and Arenado gets long in the tooth,
What if it happens this year to him, right?
But here's why I say the Baltimore Orioles, right? They came out of nowhere. They were predicted to lose 105, 109 games last year, right? They have a really good young roster, really good underrated players. Their lineup is better than people think. They've got more prospects that are about to graduate. They went on a run last year, and they were in wild card contention until the end, and they won 83 games. And this is after being dreadful for how long?
Too long, yes.
All they need is some pitching. And I'm not saying they're going to beat out the Yankees. I'm not saying that. But you do have one more postseason spot available. And the Orioles have not spent much money at all, meaning they've got a lot of money to spend. A lot of money to spend. All they needed to do is get busy and strengthen their rotation, maybe their bullpen a little bit. And you have a team that won 83, lost 79 last year. Really one of the surprises. They had a chance to build on that and maybe build that up to about a 91 win team, get into the postseason. Mm-hmm. Here's what they've done. Kyle Gibson, 1 year, $10 million.
Oh.
Adam Frazier, who's terrible. They did bring back one of their relievers they had a long while back, Michael Givens, who's pretty good still, and sign a couple of basically fringe free agents.
That's it.
Why are they letting a year of opportunity slip away? It's just mind-boggling to me.
And Gibson signed relatively early in the process.
Yeah, and look, he lives in St. Louis, and he's a Mizzou guy. He's a class act, but he's just not very good anymore.
Right. Based on what they said, they spent. Why not go after Quintana instead of that? If you're going to spend a little, just more useful, right?
They got Nomar Mazara though.
Oh, well,
that's a joke.
Well, I know it is.
All right, I got another. And
that's not good enough, though. You're right.
It's ridiculous. You go from 100 and some losses 2 years in a row, maybe 3 years in a row, or close to, and all of a sudden you're down to the final week of the season with a mathematical chance to win a wild card. You got 83 wins, and you don't do a damn thing to really improve your team when you've been sitting on welfare checks, meaning payments from the richer teams, for years and years and years. And unlike the Cubs, for example, back in the Theo days, this Orioles rebuild, I'm exaggerating for effect, this rebuild has been going on since like Boog Powell was traded. I mean,
it's been a long time. You're
fellas, right. You're on the cusp. We're not saying, well, oh boy, they should have gone all out to sign Carlos Correa. And I'm not saying that. Just give your manager a chance to have a solid rotation and a better bullpen, and you're in the playoffs next season.
Yeah, you got that opportunity to get in there.
So I tell you another one, and listen, things can change, but I'm going to stay in the AL East. Toronto, good year last year. Toronto's got a lot of talent. We know that, right?
Uh-huh. Yep.
And I know that they're going to have to sign some of your young guys, Vlad Guerrero Jr. especially, to contract extensions, and that's going to happen before you know it. But here's what they've done, Toronto, and keep in mind they got those catchers they can trade, and maybe they will. Here's what they've done so far as far as incoming. They signed Chris Bassett as a free agent, and they signed Kevin Kiermaier as a free agent.
Yeah, that was the one I went, Okay.
What are they doing? They're another wealthy franchise. They've got a good nucleus. They're talented. What are they doing?
They need to do more as well. Because, look, Toronto is not a small market. I don't. No one can convince me because from time to time they go, well, it's Canada. No. It's Toronto. It's the biggest city.
It's it's the New York of Canada.
It is. So I could never understood how they said, well, they can't. No, they can spend with them. Don't give me all the minutia about the dollar and all that. They can afford it. They're a big market team.
All right. What franchises, at least to this point, because these teams can add, Which franchises are Steve Cohen and the Mets making look bad because of their aggressiveness this offseason? Let's go to the Giants, who just lost Correa to the Mets because they were dawdling around about some ancient injury. And Scott Boras said, well, you know, never mind. We got this offer over here. Never mind. We're good. So here's what the Giants did. Now look, they kept Jock Peterson because he actually they made a qualifying offer and he took it.
Yep.
All right. They could have easily lost him, but I think he sold himself short a little bit. But whatever. They free agents. They signed Sean Manaea. They signed that's a free agent starter.
Yep. Nice.
Ross Stripling from Toronto, free agent.
Mm-hmm.
And they took a flyer on free agent outfielder Mitch Haniger, possibility of him having a bounce back season, and maybe he will. I don't know, but that's a team that went from 107 wins in 2021 to 81-81 this past season, and it was a really dull team. They lost Carlos Rodon, and the point being, where's San Francisco in terms of keeping up with or getting to where the Dodgers are again, as they were in 2021, or keeping pace with the Padres? They have become somewhat irrelevant, even though it's a great franchise. I mean, that thing has kind of slipped away all of a sudden, and they can't. They've tried to get players. They've gotten rejected by Judge. They messed up the Correa thing, but they didn't make a big bid on Carlos Rondon, which was stupid. So I don't know what they're doing now. I really don't know what they're up to. I know they tried to spend some money. But what does it say that nobody wanted to take their money?
Well, and that's the bottom line there. You're 100% on that one. I give them credit for the attempt because it looked like they were in the grasp. I'm still not sure what happened with Correa there. I'd like to know the backstory. And, okay, what was the real thing that held you guys back? Because now you kind of look like fools, and you're probably kicking yourself and go, oh, we didn't see that coming.
Right.
So shame on them. That's their own fault. But the one thing, 2 years ago, when they had the great season, Bernie, even I kept looking at what they were doing. I don't know how the heck they're doing it, but they were so good
really good platoon matchups.
The
matchups.
Wade Juniors and all those guys. They all fit.
They were smart.
Perfect. Right?
There was a lot of role players. They were really, really smart. But the thing about role players, you're a really good role player one year. It doesn't mean you'll be the next year.
That's it. So yeah. I think they're maybe living off of that too much, and they got to realize you got to go out and get some guys that can be here a while. They
need more star power.
I'll throw another thing out there that they've done, and that's and I'm missing the name, but the shortstop has been there forever for
Crawford.
Them. Probably.
So if he ain't
too
Bert
long.
Pie, he's
he had that great season, and then went, oh yeah. No, they were
going to move him to third, I think.
They needed
second.
to move on. Yeah.
All right, next team on my list would be, and this is another one that. Because these are in no particular. This is another one, and I will not dote. Reading the people that cover the Arizona Diamondbacks, reading some national writers, right?
Yep.
They're saying, watch out for the Diamondbacks. They really like the team they have, but they know they need to get better, and they're going to be, Jim Bowden said this, they're going to be one of the most aggressive teams this winter. Don't be surprised. They've signed 2 free agent relievers, one Castro from the Yankees, who was way down on the pecking order, and they signed an American pitcher who has been working as a reliever in Japan. That's it, nothing else.
I completely forgot about them until you brought them up, but that's why, because they'd done nothing. I was like,
everybody talking about, they're going to make a move. They're going to make a couple big moves. Watch out. Now they have a chance to trade. They're willing to trade an outfielder. They're willing to give some people up. We'll see what they do. But right now, a lot of talk.
To your point, though,
big hat, no cattle.
Everybody keeps saying they want to get rid of Dalton Varsho. Go, well, if he's so good, why are you moving him?
I know.
That's the one I don't understand.
They've been pretty mismanaged, right?
Yeah.
Next on the list, let's go with the Boston Red Sox.
Oh.
Now, they could spend and spend and spend. They used to. Spend and spend and spend and spend. They would actually hand out some pretty dumb contracts. Now, they've been stepping it up a little bit here as of late. They signed Kenley Jansen. You never know when his expiration date's coming as far as being effective.
Right.
They signed another reliever that throws hard, but he only pitched well over a relatively brief time for the Dodgers last year. Chris Martin, and he's one of these guys who could just blow up. Not a sure thing.
No.
And whatever's left of Justin Turner, they signed him to an economical deal, the longtime or former Dodgers third baseman. When the Dodgers don't want you and they could have had you for like $10 million, $12 million, I don't know. What's Boston doing being a bottom feeder? Justin Turner's still okay, but he's sort of getting to those decline years,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. You're right about it. I see for me, Boston, number one is the one I go, you should be embarrassed because you have more money than anybody else other than the
Right.
New York teams. And they're acting like they're a small market team. You know, the Jansen thing will be interesting from this standpoint. How does the pitch clock affect the way he goes about his
That's
business?
a really good point, yeah.
He is so deliberate, and he's been great, but how does that affect the way he goes about being a closer and trying to change at this late in his career? I want to see how that affects him moving forward, but they've done nothing but just look, they have enough money to spend and go get any of these players we just talked about that got signed in the last month, and they've basically have done nothing except stand by and watch. They should be embarrassed, probably more than anybody.
And finally, I saved him for last, but I really do believe that Steve Cohen and the Mets have made the Cardinals look really bad. The Cardinals have had a 93-win team, most wins they've had as a franchise since 2015. They have Goldschmidt and Arenado still in their peak and still, well, last year, two of the three best players in the National League. They have a really good defense. They went and signed Wilson Contreras to a reasonable contract. I think, given what happened since then, it was really almost a bargain contract. The Cardinals have a lot of things working in their favor, but what they don't have is a vision, and they don't have enough aggressiveness, and they don't seem to comprehend how winning the NL Central is. It's kind of like winning the American Hockey League trophy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you're right.
It's just like, okay, good job, but where does it get you?
What do we do with this?
Okay, hey, congrats, Rochester Americans. Congratulations. Now what? And they've signed one free agent, and he was 87.5 million, I think?
Yep, yeah, it was right around there. Yep.
Except for 2023, he agreed to take a lesser salary. $10 million is what they're paying him in 2023. So for 2023, they have basically spent to improve their team, and we know this team's got some vulnerabilities. They've spent $10 million as compared to $800 million by Steve Cohen. You can make a case that the Mets and their owner have made that the Cardinals will be number one on the list of teams that the Mets and their owner have made look really bad. They're in the conversation for the top spot. They've spent $10 million.
That's rough.
They signed Contreras. Everyone says in town you have a few detractors because you're always going to have some detractors. It was a hell of a move. It was a necessary move. It will make them better at one position.
Well, they did.
That's it.
They did tell us payroll was going up.
Yeah. They were crowing about that. The payroll has not gone up. Adam Wainwright, they brought him back. He agreed to defer money. They're deferring all this stuff.
Yeah.
As far as 2023 payroll, right now, you can make a case depending on what math you want to use.
Right.
That their payroll's down.
That is embarrassing.
And this was after the chest thumping about the payroll's going up, like you said.
Yeah.
That's it. You got Arenado and Goldschmidt in their peak, but they're also both in their 30s. That's it? Really?
It's year, 34, 35, I think, now.
It's bad enough that you got a miracle season out of Albert Pujols. totally unexpected, the magnitude of what he did.
Uh-huh.
You couldn't win one postseason game, and you couldn't score runs. You don't have a number one starter. Your bullpen is not as good as you think it is. I don't know, man.
Well,
Look, if the Cardinals win 100 games with what they have now, or they add a piece or two, if they add a piece or two, you have to adjust because it could change things.
Yeah.
It could change the way we view them as well. But it's almost insulting that they think one move that pales in comparison financially to what so many other teams are doing, teams that they have to beat in the National League, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's almost borderline. You got to be kidding, right? And when you say you got to be kidding, that you're conveying that it's almost like insulting.
There aren't too many guys left to where they buy them and I go, okay. Free agent wise, I go, okay, that's really good. Right now, it's just,
Right.
They're going to have to go trade to go get somebody of significance to help out, I think.
And I tell you what, if they're having a serious problem, and I hope they don't, I want to see them do well. I want the fans to be happy.
Right.
I wish no failure on them. I just want them to be more aggressive, be more ambitious. That's all. They don't have to go crazy, but come on. Improve your team. Strengthen it in some areas. You don't have to spend a fortune to do that. All right, here's the deal. If they're having a hard time, I hope this isn't the case, but if a pitcher or two breaks down, or Ryan Helsley's on the IL for 60 days,
they're really in trouble then.
They are going to be under so much pressure to make a big move or two at the trade deadline, where they'll have to part with some of the Fabergé eggs, And I appreciate what they did. Praise to John Mozeliak for acquiring Jordan Montgomery and Jose Quintana. Applause. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys were perfect for what the Cardinals needed to win the division in the regular season. And Quintana did his part in the postseason. But if they don't go big, if their whole thing is they're going to try to play it off like, well, we have all of our prospects, and you never know what things are going to look like during the season and whether needs will arise. So they're trying to sell that now as like, hey, we're well prepared and we're well armed to do what we need to do at the right time. So that's going to be the next spin.
And how long do you wait? Do you wait till the last week of July again?
Probably.
Which
a lot of those trades don't get going until then. But yeah, you can jump the schedule a little bit. You can
because if you wait that long and you're doing what you've done the last 2 years, Bernie, guess what? You're right back in the same boat you've been in playoff-wise the last 2 years. You're playing in a wild card game, or you're not getting any home field advantage that's going to work for you, and you're shooting for better, I thought, right? I thought we were going to try and get into the top two and get ourselves in a better spot, so when we get to those playoffs, we got a better fighting chance.
No, that's exactly right. And I don't know what to do with the Dodgers, because I know what the Dodgers are trying to do. Like, the Dodgers have been pretty quiet. They brought back Kershaw. That's good. They signed Noah Syndergaard. That wasn't a bad pickup, but it's not a huge impact.
Right.
They signed J.D. Martinez, late of the Boston Red Sox. He'll be able to provide some offense. And then there's a big drop down to Shelby Miller, somebody named Bradley Zimmer, and then Jason Hayward. But what they're trying to do, there's two things. First of all, they're living in fear of an arbitrator when this thing comes up, telling them, no, you have to pay Trevor Bauer.
That'll be tough, yeah.
So that's a lot of money. I think maybe $24 million. It's more, but I know it starts with $24 million. If they're ordered to pay him, then obviously that puts a burden on the payroll. The other thing is they've been in this payroll tax hell now for a few years, and they want to reset. And the way you reset, because the more years you're into the above and beyond the threshold, every year the penalty gets much more severe, and it just keeps going up and up and up. So and the way you make that stop is you get under it for a year. the payroll threshold.
It resets itself.
And it resets.
Okay. Yep.
So at least there is a strategy that has a meaningful purpose, and it's just not them being cheap. Those hedge fund guys that own that team, they are not cheap. I think they're just saying, for 1 year, we just have to reset this thing, and then we'll go about our business again. I get that. So I'm not going to beat up on them too much. This isn't like a Red Sox thing, right?
Yeah, no, they're not selling Mookie Betts. They're keeping them.
Right. Right. And they're going to be good, really good. Now, the question is, can the Padres overtake him in the West? I don't know.